I was getting really scared.
Why has the military been engaged in a UFO cover-up, even forcing their own servicemen into silence?
We were just told to not say anything about this to anybody outside of Combat Information Center.
The commander told me that I wasn't even supposed to mention this.
We'll tell you about the civilian watchdog group that took matters into their own hands.
The Air Force was being very secretive about UFOs, and we were trying to get information out.
And stay tuned for the summary of all the info in our UNX report, here on Unexplained Mysteries. Unexplained Mysteries, real people, real UFOs. Skeptics say that UFO eyewitnesses are not credible. But what if the witness is a policeman trained to observe and to tell the truth? A police station in Cleveland, Ohio. This is the actual official statement recorded by Detective John Healy.
I have with me in my office at the present time Detective John Healy. Healy's going to describe in his own way of an incident that had occurred last night.
Okay, we left Port Columbus Airport at about 10:30 last night. It had a steady red light on its nose. It was cigar-shaped and it had a green light shining down out of the aft end.
Detective Healy flew in a routine training exercise the previous night. Over the town of Mansfield, Ohio, the men encountered a UFO.
We were almost involved in a mid-air collision. I noticed a red light, but I thought it would be the port wing of another aircraft. We saw it kept coming at us. It didn't have any wings. It didn't have any windows, as you would see on a conventional aircraft.
The other crewmen saw the UFO and documented the incident in an official military report. But Healy insists on coming forward to talk publicly about this life-threatening event.
This object moved at a very fast rate of speed. It saw us probably before we saw it. It just tracked us because we had all our navigation lights on and running and blinking.
Over the town of Mansfield, the UFO got so close, the pilot had to initiate evasive maneuvers.
The pilot put the helicopter into a dive.
The chopper descended at 500 feet per minute. When it reached an altitude of 1,700 feet, the UFO shot a tractor beam at the helicopter.
This was just a humongous green light just shining down on us in a very definite cone shape. You could look at the light and you could actually see the beam of the light.
Suddenly, the light somehow pulled the chopper up towards the UFO.
It scanned us for that instant that it hesitated over us. It scanned us. Then it took off.
After the object went off to the west, the helicopter pilot noted that although he had been in a descent and his controls were in the configuration for a descent, the helicopter had actually risen to 3,800 feet. The object was under continual observation for 5 minutes, perhaps even more.
Further confirmation of the UFO incident came from two people on the ground, Irma DeLong and her son Charles.
The kids kept hollering, they wanted to stop.
She finally stopped the car and I jumped out. I remember the whole top of the sky was lit up a dull fluorescent green.
To be honest, it scared me. I was scared at that time. But it didn't sink in that it was still really something, a UFO.
This brought together two groups of witnesses. It established the exact location of the event. We were able to compute the flight path of the helicopter.
J. Allen Hynek, the director of CUFOS, the Center for UFO Studies, interviewed the crewmen at length. Their drawings of the UFO were strikingly similar. More disturbing was their sense that the UFO intended to destroy them. After the encounter, the helicopter, like the crewmen, was never the same.
The aircraft number was 15444. That was the aircraft we were in that night. She was never any good after that. The radios would never work right, navigation instruments, nothing.
What caused that damage? Some said it was simply a meteor.
Well, there's no way this could have been a meteor. It lasted for 5 minutes. No meteor takes 5 minutes to cross the sky from horizon to horizon.
Detective John Healy and several witnesses saw a flying saucer. Its purpose, perhaps deadly, is still unexplained. Thousands of miles away, other rural towns in Idaho and Washington are plagued by UFOs.
Over there, at the top of those trees over there was a bright light shining.
And it was like they were putting on a laser show. They'd turn up on their side and you see like laser beams of lights.
I called the Post Falls Police Department, and they came out and asked us what we thought we were looking at. At this point, I handed him my binoculars, and I said, "Look for yourself." He immediately reported the same thing that we were seeing.
In Post Falls, Idaho, the police switchboard lit up with calls reporting the same craft in the sky.
Well, it was on graveyard shift, and we had reports that people were seeing twinkling lights. They were kind of nervous and said there's something floating in the sky. Well, the first thing we did was run outside and look and see if there really was something in the sky, and there was a white light, and there were colored lights kind of rotating around it. There was red, green, blue, purple, and a gold-colored light, and they were flashing systematically.
It was very shallow light, two shallow saucers placed together. The only lights on it were on the bottom. In the center was a recessed amber light.
A Post Falls local shot this compelling videotape. It shows one of the crafts in the sky. In order for the camera to pick up the object, the light emanating from it would have to be unusually bright. Not far away, near Lake Newman, a man was almost blinded by an unearthly light.
I was driving down West Newman Lake Road a little before midnight. All of a sudden, a blinding white light came from directly above me. I slowed down, opened the door, looked up. All I could see was a bright, round, incredibly bright light straight above me. Immediately became incredibly frightened, and I drove away as fast as I could. I headed straight to a house not too far away down the road, a friend's house.
He was so scared. He was just, I've never seen him shake. He actually was just shaking. And very pale, no color to him.
I was in the military. This light was not something I've ever seen on any aircraft. It would have to be something incredibly large. I can't imagine, but the light would have to be 50 yards across.
McClure called Lieutenant Colonel Jerry Rolls, who tried to find out if the craft was of military origin.
Based on the interface that I had with the Air Force, I can only say what the object was not. I have pretty well ruled out any type of encounter with an aircraft.
Ever since what happened, obviously I don't stop in the same place. I feel uncomfortable in the dark, not because I think there's a monster out there waiting for me, but because there's something out there, and I didn't see what was behind the light.
Next on Unexplained Mysteries, real people, real UFOs. The UFO sightings over a Florida resort town.
And we have over 500 witnesses, and we have about 262 recorded sightings, and we've investigated